You're a fool.
Welcome, everybody, to the Racing Foolz podcast, the first episode of the Racing Foolz podcast. I'm CHALEE SIENGTHAI, and joining me is the full low-budget TV team of Jeffrey Best, Tommy Mason.
It is.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Tommy. This is the first time I actually figured out how to pronounce Charlie's last name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like.
Well, if you never heard it, then
yeah.
If you never heard it, then there's no way you would know. So.
It's scary.
I thought there was an L in there, man.
So to be fair, it is scary looking, and I did the same thing you did, Jeffrey, until he said it out loud. And then if you read it, it's really not that bad because it's SIENGTHAI.
Yeah, it's not nearly. But you know what they do in the Christmas party, Tommy?
What do they do?
And you'll get a kick out of this, Jeffrey. When they get to my name, they look at my name and they just say, CHALEE from MAVTV. They don't even try. They just know. Or sometimes they just do like Prince, just one name, just CHALEE, and then they know. It's
don't
me.
even bother.
So
you're gonna have to take a provisional on that last name.
I'm still getting used to the missing R in his first name.
Charlie, yeah. Gets
Charlie.
that a lot. I've been around Charlie when he's been asked, "What's your name?" My name is Charlie. Oh, hey, Charlie. and Charlie just goes on like he said it right.
There's no point. It's a moot point. It's a lost cause.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are here on this first episode of this podcast, and man, oh man. So the interesting thing, we kind of all brainstormed, the three of us, about how, we've kind of done some test ones that are on YouTube if you want to hear us really fail. But we figured, you know what, we'll just kind of be like NASCAR and start at the opening part of their season, and we'll just go on and discuss NASCAR and what we're doing on low budget TV. And lo and behold, we had probably one of the most interesting season openers for all divisions, including the Cup Series, and I feel like have a lot of topics.
Yeah, I guess we'll briefly start with the duels, and then go to trucks, Xfinity, and then, of course, the 500. So what did you guys think of the duels? I thought it was pretty competitive.
Well, I thought the duels really kind of set the precedent. Obviously, we had the clash the week or a couple days earlier, and just about everybody who was in the race and out of the race was like, well, don't use this as what to expect to see for the rest of the week. So the duels are always kind of that opener, that first glance into what we can expect from the 500. And I was impressed, actually, with the racing. It was, we had some good double file stuff there. We had jockeying for position. We had drama in regards to some unfortunate wrecks for some unfortunate drivers. There were a lot of highlights, I guess you could say, that came out of those duels. So that was kind of a good lead-in to the rest of the weekend.
One of the things that I touched on was how great the race, like normally, I feel like leading into every duel, it's which race is going to be the chaotic one, which race is going to follow up and be the calm one. Now, I just explained, usually race 1 is a chaotic one, race 2 is a calm one. They were both action-packed. I mean, they were, like you said, Jeffrey, they were side-by-side duking it out. Bump drafting gone wrong, pit stops gone wrong, and I mean, in those two races alone, we saw really the beginnings of what we would see all of Daytona 500.
Yeah, because last year after the duels, everybody was afraid, because it was pretty much single file, and they were all worried that the 500 was going to be like that. Obviously, it wasn't, but this year, that's not what happened. I mean, even the second duel, we saw a great pass for lead with a couple laps to go, and when we weren't really sure if that was going to happen, but they were able to pass, they were able to make moves, and that was refreshing to see.
Definitely. I think we're on to some very exciting plate racing, even though there's no plates in these cars anymore, because the moves are just so drastic. And, what we saw all of that Thursday, and then even the Friday, the Saturday, and then, of course, Monday for the Cup Series, we saw a lot of intense racing all 3 days.
Now, were you guys shocked, though, that the incident that took out Suarez, how the Fords didn't even know that they were pitting until turn 4?
I was shocked personally just by the lack of communication. It is the first, you could technically say it's the first points race of, the year. There are points on the line. So you're going to work out some of those issues. Obviously, Penske has had a lot of movement with the teams this year. So on that front, I'm not surprised that there were issues. It just to me felt like, while we've heard from, crew chief to driver that, hey, we did not get the word that pitting was happening there. It also felt, though, to me that like there was a third missing communication, because Blaney, the moment he knew that pit stops were happening, he's like, here we come. And yet Suarez was still there. Like, Suarez, the 96 wasn't going anywhere. So I felt like even maybe spotter to driver, it just seemed like there was so much that happened at once. And granted, it does happen so fast. Like, we can sit up here and play Monday morning quarterback all we want. But I don't know, like, just the incident looked weird. I had a bad feeling when the camera shot showed Suarez behind that pack, because we all knew that pit stops were coming. The Fords hadn't pitted. Everyone else had. I just had this feeling that the next shot we were going to see was Suarez in trouble. And lo and behold, next shot was Suarez with a bashed in front end. And it was surprising. It was unfortunate, but it's Daytona. And, it's again, a guy who really needed luck to go his way. It just didn't pan out for him.
And just think about that mistake on someone else's front for Gaunt Brothers Racing. I mean, they not only missed out on the opportunity to start Daytona, who knows where they would have finished, and it was just a tough blow for, of course, Suarez, who arguably is holding on for any type of a ride in the Cup Series and lands at Gaunt Brothers. That team took a major hit financially, and to me, pardon me for being biased to the number 96, but how upset, how would I have reacted more than what I did if I were to find out that I, quote, didn't get the message because their internet is bad?
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
F-A-L-E is what I got to say.
Look, all I'm saying is that the 96s I've seen on track always look like they have no internet connection.
Hey,
right?
Wait a minute. Easy now.
Because for those that don't know, as you mentioned, Tommy, you're biased. Tommy drives a 96 car. I'll drive a 00 from time to time. For those that don't know, us on the low-budget TV side, we're also very well affiliated with Irwindale Speedway down in Southern California. We tried our hand at racing, which means we're definitely cut out to talk about what drivers are doing wrong.
Of course, yeah.
Because we do everything wrong, because we actually went from doing actual circle track racing to more of Night of Destruction events. So we know how to crash, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, going back to the duels, though, what I found kind of just maybe ironic or just coincidental is how it wasn't just the duel with Suarez, which was the first duel that we initially knocked out a guy trying to race his way in. The second duel had the exact same thing happen with the two drivers.
That was very interesting, and I feel like that it was a bum deal for both teams, but I feel like it wasn't a mechanical issue. It wasn't anything more than wrong place, right time, still being in the fight for starting the Daytona 500. And you got mixed up in other people's doings, but also the second duel, they were literally side by side for laps trying to determine placings.
Yeah, no, that was just a great show. Watching that, like you said, literally dueling side by side, maybe 20 laps. I don't know. I didn't actually keep count, but it was fun to watch. They were great duels. I personally am somebody who, for now till forever, do I want us to have the clash? Do I want us to have the duels? It drives me nuts when I see so-called fans saying, "Oh, we should just get rid of these races. They don't mean anything." I'm like, guys, we're racing at Daytona.
Yeah.
Like, even if they're single file for the whole damn time, we're racing at Daytona. Like, as a fan, all of us have grown up with racing. To me, it's what makes this weekend
Special.
the jewel, so iconic, so special.
Yeah.
Is that we have these extra races. We have these essentially heat races that we get to watch. So yeah, no, whenever I see anybody saying, "Oh, we should get rid of it for any reason," I'm always like, shut up.
Like, why would you want less racing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if anything, add more.
I just enjoy that they care that much about these other teams, like financials. It's like
They're running the books.
right. It's like no. We're here. It's a show. It's entertainment. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Daytona was entertaining.
So to put a period on the clash, we're all in agreement that Suarez did nothing wrong, right? That was a dumb move by Ford for stopping in front of him.
Yeah, Blaney just turned left.
Well, first Keselowski stopped, and then Blaney turned. Like, it was almost like insurance fraud.
It totally was. A
So-
Penske
It's
insurance
the weirdest
fraud.
thing, because there's a lawyer commercial on the computer right now. It's just
Yeah.
going by. I'm not fully on the Suarez did nothing wrong bit, and when I say Suarez, it means everybody around that 96 car, spotter, crew chief, driver.
Yeah, there was a catalytic fail on everybody's end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because on their part, like it was basically how they say it takes two to tango, or two people to cause a wreck. In some cases, Tommy's found a lot of ways where one person's.
Well, I don't know. In iRacing yesterday, I think Joel has proved that you only need one person. But continue.
True. But it's just with Suarez in that situation, I just feel like they were in a spot at that time where they were in pretty good shape. They were ahead of the driver they had to beat to that also wasn't locked in. And then they also, I'm trying to recall where everything was lining up with the third car involved, which was Haley. But essentially that was just, hey, let's survive through this bit right here. And for him to be that tight to a pack of cars that everybody watching the race knew these guys are going to pit at some point. It just felt like there was an additional miss with information there for Suarez. Like he even said, I had no idea they were coming in. They didn't even really indicate anything.
Well, they didn't either. So
right. Well, and this is, again, it's what's so weird to me about the communication side is everyone's acting like, oh, they were instant messaging, for the Fords, like on when to pit. But why? At that point, everyone else had pitted, so I don't get why they couldn't have just over the radio said, all right, guys, we're coming in on this lap. It would have had no effect on what anyone else was going to do at that point. So it's just weird.
Okay, well, unfortunately for Suarez, but hopefully they could rebound the next race in Vegas. Let's move along to the truck race, which was absolutely bonkers.
It was crazy. That was a race.
It was a truck race. Truck race at Daytona. I mean.
Yep. That was a Daytona truck race. I mean, you had Ty on his roof. You had, the typical road course racing down the straightaways in a draft. I mean, you had it all in that race.
Jordan Anderson.
Yeah, and you had a photo finish.
Man.
Whew. Yeah, you did.
I remember.
Finish?
Yeah, I remember right before they wadded up, when they were 3 wide. I remember telling my dad, like, there's no way this is gonna last. And literally, like 2 corners later, like, oh, there's the big one.
Right.
So,
to be fair, it lasted 2 more corners than I ever thought it was going to.
Mhm.
Also.
True.
Like no, the racing was phenomenal. There were, and again, this division has a ton. I don't know the number, but there are you know, it was a decent sized field of inexperience that was in this race. And it did poke through a couple times where, you know, we saw incidents take place. One of it was Angela Ruck, who I got to give Angela credit in that 00 machine, not being biased or anything. But like I said, my 00. With Angela, I was actually very impressed because that truck had, I mean, it was, I think, the second slowest truck in qualifying, maybe. It just way off the pace. And with the team and whatnot, not totally, you know, it's a Rayum truck. It's not a truck that you'd expect to get the pole at Daytona, but man, when she was in that pack laps before that she wrecked, I was like, man, Angela's going for it. She was putting the nose to trucks, getting them out of the way. It eventually bit her in the end and caused a wreck, but I got to give my props. I thought that you know, up until the wreck, she was really showing stuff that I didn't expect to see from that truck in that race.
Yeah, she was running in the top 10 for quite a while, so it wasn't like she was there for a lap or two. She was mixing it up, and she did get a shout out on the TV show too, I believe. So it was very impressive to see that. Unfortunately, it didn't end well for her, and that was the first. Well, not the first, but that was one of the few, you know, one of the crashes before the big one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, and to mention also in that that race or in that wreck, I don't think that enough people have given credit to the 28 truck doing his fire duty.
Right. I mean, that was splendid amount of work. When you have a fire truck in the race and they're the ones to put
cause the fire, right?
Cause the fire. I mean, that's just job security right there.
He put out the fire.
Did he put out the fire?
He put out
He did.
The O2 was on the brink of bursting into flames, barely got touched by one of the trucks he's driving by, and the truck said, "I'm done. There's no more of this race than this who was it? Now I'm trying. Oh, the 02.
Yeah.
Tate Fogelman. That thing just burst into flames. Like I'm not convinced that truck wasn't going to do that anyways coming out of turn 4.
Yeah, I could have just done that at any moment, but then, it's a tough break because I feel like that truck race, and this does happen quite a bit, at least with ARCA and trucks. I feel like you've got more low budgets in the field, and never do I enjoy watching people crash. Full disclaimer there, of course. You hear this with every type of entertainment show, but forget all that. It's just a bummer when the teams that don't have any money to begin with are all wadded up in the same wreck. And that we saw a lot of within the truck series. But then you saw towards the end of the race, you saw the underdog stories and Jordan Anderson battling with Enfinger to the line. And CHALEE, you and I, we work at Lucas.
Full disclaimer.
And you know, I was going crazy for Jordan because I wanted to see him secure not only that big win, but also more funding.
Yes.
So
yes.
Lucas has a part into Jordan Anderson's team, so we all have a part into
We have a vested interest, yeah.
Right. And, you know, that would have been huge for everybody to pick up a Daytona trophy, but just so close, and that's Daytona for you.
When he missed that big wreck, I was like, ooh, top 10.
Yeah.
And then on the white flag, when Chastain went high and got loose or whatever, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, Jordan's gonna be in second. He could win this. And then I jumped out of my seat, and when he pulled out of the draft, going to the home stretch, I thought he timed it perfectly. I mean, he had a big move, but I thought he timed it perfectly.
Did.
And then Grant said no.
Nah.
So what do you guys think? Were you guys good with that move that Grant did?
I mean, I would do the same thing. You're coming to the line at Daytona. Don't be the reason that you let the guy by. You know, do whatever it takes. I get it. High speed, high stakes. Doesn't matter. I'll still, you know, do what I can. I mean, if I do it in video games, who's to say I wouldn't do it in real life? I don't care what anybody says.
He has done it in real life. I'm just throwing this out. To answer the question, CHALEE, I think yes. No, you're on the last lap. You're not even last lap. You're on the last.
You could see this. Yeah, you could see the finish line.
Yeah, you know, you see that checkered flag. it's fair game. You know what Grant did, like he didn't wreck the 3. He didn't even put the 3 into the wall.
No.
Like he just, I mean, he hit him good. Like in that slow mo shot, you nearly see Jordan lose the wheel. But I really feel like one of the things that kind of has gotten lost about this great finish is that it was technically a 3-wide finish.
Yeah.
Cody Rohrbaugh in the 9 machine, who also barely, and I'd have to go back and look, but I had the truck owner points sitting next to me, keeping tabs on who's in, who's out in qualifying, and that 9 truck squeaked into this show. He barely made it into the show, and to come back after a spin that didn't bring out a caution, he was able to come back and nearly win this thing. Had Grant hit the 3 any harder, had the 3 turned down on Grant, there's no telling. The 9 nearly won this race, and that to me is also just as, if not crazier, because we know that Anderson has done a great job with this 3 team, really managing their funds, doing really building that team. They just formed an alliance with the 22 this year, so I mean they've got what it could be their best year ahead of them. But then you got the 9 team, who again didn't even get an interview at the end of the night, and we understand like time constraints. But I was like, bummer.
Yeah.
I don't blame them for interviewing Natalie Decker. She, made history that night, being the highest finishing female in the Truck Series history. So I mean, there was just a lot of stuff to take away
and Kraus
from this race.
Kraus too.
Yeah, 4. I mean that's a West Coast BMR connection.
Yeah.
Bill McAnally Racing. It was a very, again, interesting truck race.
Yeah, and don't forget, Kraus had his issue, I think, in the first stage. He was the first one who had to hit pit road because they had a tire going down. So.
Exactly. So, I mean, a lot of comebacks, a lot of underdog stories, an incredible finish. Ty Majeski, who's won the Winter Showdown out at Irwindale. Let me try that again. Ty Majeski, who won the Winter Showdown out at Kern, who finished without lights and then had victory lane celebration under the lights.
Man, you're just not going to let that go, huh?
No, it was just a tough, unfortunate thing. But Ty, who's won in California, was upside down in Florida. So
now's the question. Has the curse of the 60 Roush Xfinity team that shut down followed Ty Majeski, or is Ty the one who cursed the 60 car? Sorry, Ty. that guy's got some terrible luck.
Right.
Like if he's in a late model, all right, bring it on. But it just seems like he just has not caught a break.
It's weird because I mean in the top series, he has so much to prove because he's got the speed and the talent and everything else, but literally sometimes the wheels fall off or
didn't he get screwed at Snowball?
Right.
Yeah,
random things happen. But then, he'll win ARCA races.
Yeah.
So it's just like what the heck? But
I mean, he won half the races that he entered in ARCA last year.
So
3 out of 6.
Mm-hmm. And then the truck, you're like, okay, so you got that confidence going into Daytona, and then you're upside down. So tough break, but just hang in there, Ty. If I got any recommendation for you, hang in there. You worst case, we got a skid plate car at our window.
Now there's one other kind of big storyline actually from the truck race that didn't even involve the race. In qualifying, both of the Nemecheks missing the show, and it kind of really, I feel like all 3 top NASCAR divisions had storylines from qualifying. Suarez missing the 500, both of the Nemecheks missing the truck race, and they're not entered for at least the next race, Vegas. So people are wondering, perhaps that had something to do with it. Maybe they were already planning on cutting back, but that's got to be a pretty big blow to that team that's been kind of struggling the last year.
I mean, and with John Hunter doing his busy year, you would think maybe they'd at least have Joe come out, but that I didn't know that they weren't entered. And again, missing Daytona, you miss out even just by not being on the starting grid. You miss out on a good starting pay. So that
there was on that same note, the 66 in the Cup Series. I think they reported during the 500 that team, if they didn't make the 500, was going to shut down.
Right.
Yeah. And that happens a lot with small teams and big races, whether it's Daytona, NASCAR, even the Indy 500 and IndyCar. You got these low budget teams that put every penny they have to try to make the race. And if they make it, they're good. But if they don't make it, they're done.
Just makes you appreciate Del McCowart even more after all the attempts that he made at Daytona.
Delma.
So.
He pulled it off like.
Oh, he did a few times.
Once,
only a few times.
But what was his saying, Tommy? I mean,
ain't never won a race, but never lost the party. Something to that effect. So Delma, just look up Delma Cowart on YouTube. That's all you need.
That's all you ever need. Yeah.
All right, so we talked about some qualifying issues, and I feel like this might be a great transition to Saturday morning when the world stood still in Xfinity qualifying.
I know what you're getting to, Tommy. I was just as surprised as you were that, Colin Garrett and Tommy Joe Martins did not make the race.
I mean, to think about all the competition that they had, but they did not make the field with two of arguably the most feared lately plate or super speedway.
That's who you're getting at.
One guy burned his whole damn car down after qualifying because he was so upset.
He was ensuring a backup car. Yeah, the CHALEE cars having issues. Allmendinger and Chastain, who the last time this group was running a restrictor plate race, at one point they were basically in charge of the pack.
Right.
It was like old school DEI. 1, 2, 3.
And they only had one left at the start of the race. So Jeffrey and I, we were watching qualifying, and as I get kind of smart-assy, but that's just my own. I'll never say that I am on microphone. I'll just say that I am with the three of us when I'm watching stuff, because I always enjoy when people are like, "Oh my gosh, this is a big deal," and I turn to Jeffrey and I'm like, "This is a big deal. We're witnessing something that you don't see often." However, wasn't this a team that had major technical issues after super speedway racing? So you kind of just, to me, assume that they were trying something that didn't work out.
Absolutely. I mean, the running joke last year was, Allmendinger's in a race, so who finishes second and gets the win?
Right. But it's still an unfortunate thing. I mean, that's two good cars that were not in the field that, I'll give credit to Ross Chastain driving the green machine, Jeff Green's car, up to as far as he could. And the team, of course, switching everything over to, and probably a span of maybe 3 hours tops, start to finish. So that's pretty incredible to do a day's work in less than 3 hours. But just crazy. I mean, no one saw that one coming, and neither did the team. You can clearly see how the team was very surprised in all of that.
Yeah.
So moving ahead to the race, you had Snyder was a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had Snyder on pole. You had some fast kids, but then in the end, it was sort of like the guys that we thought would be the guys that we're going to see all year battling for the championship.
Yeah, I feel like I'll give this to Jeffrey to talk about, but I'll tee you up. They talked about the big three, but they left one person out.
I've been keeping an eye on this because first off, everybody's going on about.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
You there?
Uh-oh.
I think we lost Jeffrey.
Well, we're still connected on... Man, he's probably on a rant right now, too.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Jeffrey. You're not supposed to hit mute when you're getting into something good.
This is like all the F-bombs right now.
Oh, yeah. This is why it's actually him cussing about the big three. Either that or our equipment is burning down.
Everything looks... Literally.
This will be the time that we go talk about Crown Performance.
Yeah,
the leader.
this is the commercial, yeah.
When performance matters most, the pros trust Crown Performance. Constructed from Teflon, Kevlar, and stainless steel, Crown Performance brake lines exceed all industry standards, will hold up against the harshest conditions, and provide ultimate stopping power, whether it's for the street or the track. We offer customized sizes and colors to fit any application. Visit crownperformance.com to learn more. crownperformance.com. crownperformance.com.
Hi.
Yeah, our internet died right when you were about to go on your rant about...
That's okay, because I know exactly where to pick things up.
So pretending like nothing happened. So they talked about the big three, but they left one guy out.
So media has been really playing up this idea of a big three. And it's funny because, like, really we've only seen, at least in my recent memory of it, you know, we saw it in the Cup Series a few years ago where they had their big number group. And then last year in the Xfinity Series, we had our big three. But it's not usually a common trend that we see. But media's having fun with it, and I won't knock them for that. But of all the groupings that I've seen where people are talking about a big three, at least like on TV, I've yet to see one person put Noah Gragson into their, this is our big three.
Now,
at least someone in it.
Hang on 1 minute, Jeffrey.
Why?
So we're biased. I'll be straight up and say I'm a Noah Gragson fan. But Charlie, does this seem like we are biased by believing that he should be as a part of the big four? Or is Noah maybe just kind of a driver that still needs more to prove than Cindric and Briscoe and Allgaier?
Well, I don't know how you could not include him. I mean, he was always fast in trucks. He was fast last year in Xfinity. He just won Daytona. He's in a good car. He knows that if he does good this year, there is potentially a very good opportunity waiting for him. I don't know how you could not include him. I'm not going to say he's the favorite, but I don't know how you could not include him if you're going to make a big four or even a big three. I'll be honest with you. No disrespect to Allgaier, but I think he's pretty much the new Elliott Sadler. Like, your time came, your time passed. I think it's, maybe once Chase and Austin and Noah graduate, maybe, but I would have, if I was going to make my big three, I would have put Chase, Austin, and Noah myself.
Now, obviously, when they did their grouping, it was pre-Daytona. So, where, I don't know, I've seen it at least, and I'm not saying that he should be in every bracket for a top three someone's doing. It's just, for me, every one that I saw being referenced lacked Noah. I'm like, he should have been in at least one.
At least a topic of conversation, yeah.
Well, and here's the deal, is that you look back to last year, his first full season in the Xfinity Series, and what did he do? He nearly went the entire season without a DNF, without a single. He did end up getting one, but of all these drivers, if we said of the four drivers in this topic of Allgaier, Cindric, Briscoe, Gragson, he completed more laps than any of them. So what Noah's got for him is he's got the laps now. He essentially competed with Briscoe for the Rookie of the Year, and Cindric, is also a young driver and all this. But he's good at getting his car to the finish. What we saw at the end of last year is that he was also really picking it up. So I'm not saying that Briscoe and Cindric and Allgaier shouldn't even be part of the conversation. I'm just saying that if I were going to guess who could potentially be the four at Phoenix this year, which I have to get used to not saying Homestead, is I could see that maybe being the four by numbers, not necessarily. And that's one of the beauties of the chase. And we could get into this topic another time. But whenever I see people complain about the chase or say, "Oh, it's just a crapshoot," or "Oh, we didn't get the champion we deserved," the way I see it is that the 4 drivers that make it to the championship race are basically like, that's your goal, is to get yourself to that race. Whatever happens in that race, obviously whoever it is will want to win the championship. But I feel like to get to that race, people are acting like, oh, well, it's just luck. And there's so much that involves the full season and each grouping of the stages that get these drivers to that final race that is so crucial. And I love it. I've been a fan of NASCAR since as long as I can remember. You could say 88. Well, I probably missed most of that season, but 89 when I was, 4 months old. I was loving it. It's just, I've been around. Like, it's not like, oh, I just got into this 5 years ago and I love the chase because it's all I've ever known. To me, this adds such a high element. And, I've only a couple times seen a driver that I'm specifically rooting for make it all the way to earning the championship in any kind of chase format. But to me, it's so much fun seeing this play out throughout the year. There's, wins count for bonus. But I really like the format that they have right now. Maybe some tweaks to it, but nothing that I feel really needs. I enjoy the stages as well. To me, it feels like we kind of added heat races to racing. So I just wanted to go on that rant real quick since I was ranting about other things. There that is. But back to the Xfinity race. Like you said, Tommy, we've actually been able to interact with Noah more than a good number of the drivers in the field. I was very proud of him on Saturday.
No, we watched that race together, and we were both standing, jumping, pissing off your neighbor down below, and that was incredible. I mean, he just ran such a great race, and they talked about how he had spent so much time with Dale Jr., and that definitely helps because you can see he looked more confident in that race, the entire race. Ran a hell of a race, did everything that you need to do to win, avoided the messes, stayed, managed his gaps, and to follow back and circle back. Noah, we watched him race from the Bandoleros all the way up to his big win at Daytona, and 100% humble, loyal, and just we're a fan of his, and it's very cool to know, even to this day, because CHALEE met him over at SEMA.
No, Chili Bowl.
Chili Bowl, that's right. See, but like, and talking to Noah as recent as 2 years ago in person, it's fun to know, and it's still kind of one of those cool pump your chest moments when he still is a fan of low budget TV.
Yeah. I mean, like when I saw him and I told him, hey, I'm friends with Tommy and Jeffrey, and he chatted with me for like 10 minutes, just telling me like, dude, like I love those guys. I still watch them. And it was really cool. I wish you guys were there to be able to talk to him.
Well, we do too. Yeah.
But no, he definitely remembers you guys, and he's still a big fan. So that was really awesome to hear. Back to your rant, just to touch on your rant really quick, Jeffrey. We will have a podcast talking about our thoughts on the point system, because me and Tommy kind of had one in one of our test podcasts, how like everybody wants to pretend that every year was like 92, and it wasn't.
No, and I do crack up when people like, I'm all for all the weird stuff, like keeping track of, if it was the old school points versus now, like keep doing it. That's great. It doesn't mean anything, but do it. But there is a difference in how you race, and we've seen it for years, in a lot of cases at the short track level, where you do end up with drivers who in the last 4 races of a season need to play it safe, need to take care of the equipment. Drivers, I was watching an old race, I can't remember what it was, but people were actually like dogging on a driver who was in the running for the championship for going for it. And I'm like, how is it that this is what people want?
Right.
We're criticizing a driver because he's trying to win, because what a dummy. He's 80 points ahead of the next guy. Why would he do this? That to me is like, no, what we did was we made each race matter. Some people are like, oh, now the first 26 races don't. I think it's like you said, we'll get more on this topic.
Yeah.
But I've got my passionate feels about NASCAR and stuff, and I'll stick behind them. But yeah, no, I mean, again, we're all just fans of racing here.
Luckily, I'm pretty sure all three of us are on the same page in that regard. But did you guys have anything else to add to the Xfinity race?
Basically, off of what the last bit of the conversation just now was, is Noah's in the chase, and he can race hard, or he can take it easy, or they can experiment going into. But he's not in. I don't think he's in any sort of position to just ride, and he's got to go.
Yeah,
he's got to go get as many 3-point shots that he can. Just go hammer down. Win as many races, and just know that if he hits the ball doing so, well,
he's got insurance. Yeah.
I got three things Xfinity wise. First one's long term season. Talking about Noah and how he approaches the season. Outside of catastrophe or a huge surprise, we kind of already have an idea, I think, of the teams that we can expect maybe to make that top 12 just based off of budget and past history with the teams. There's going to be a couple teams that will be racing for those last few spots. What I wonder is, will that change the dynamic of what we see in the Xfinity series, where there were those guys that in the last few years have been trying to point their way in? Our team's going to feel more comfortable about their point situation this year, thinking, oh, we should. I'm not saying anyone is safe, but maybe they're going into this thinking, well, we should be safe. We can go for it. We can go for those wins. It might make for maybe one of the most exciting Xfinity Series seasons that we've ever seen. The door's wide open. We talk about the big three from last year. They've all moved up, which is going to make a great rookie season to keep an eye on in the Cup Series. But yeah, so that's point number one. I don't know if any of you guys have anything to build off of that.
My thing would be, why would you give up points? Just go for the wins.
Yeah. Try to rack up as many of those bonus points as you can.
So the next one is a weird one from the Xfinity race. Let us not forget that at some point in the race, fairly early on, did Jeremy Clement's hood decide, I don't want anything to do with this car anymore?
Right. And it boogied away.
That was weird looking.
That was
talked about a lot on Twitter. It was very unusual.
And the fact that Jeremy mentioned that he watched his crew guys double checking, triple checking everything. I mean, you pay so much attention to that front end, you're not going to let hood pins fly off easily. But I feel like there's something catastrophic in that front end. Speculation, of course, that bump drafting weakened everything structurally, but
perhaps
he was one of the few cases of the weekend. So who knows? He just needs to repair that repairable vehicle.
Yep. There you go. And then the last topic, at least I feel big topic from this Xfinity race, part of it happened before the race, and then the results is the second half of it, is going back to talking about Timmy Hill. That 66 team incurred a huge penalty before the race. I believe it was a L2 maybe? Yeah. There's so many L's, but I think it was a 50-point penalty, $50,000 penalty, and apparently what Carl Long is saying happened is that they sent the nose to the paint shop, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna buff this out and add some Bondo here," and NASCAR's like, "What the hell's this, Carl?" And Carl's like, "What the hell's that?"
Yeah,
I don't know. Carl Long, dude, talk about a guy that. It feels like every 7 years something really bad happens to Carl Long.
From motors to Bondo. At least he's picking the cheaper of the option. It's just still costing him a lot of money.
Right. So that team, though, comes back to finish third in this Xfinity race. So a great rebound for Hill and that team. They didn't have, the Daytona 500 finish that they wanted, but But yeah, that had to at least be on a boost with all the other troubles that surrounded them that weekend. That hey, shout out a low budget team getting it up there, and he even led one lap.
That's right.
Wasn't their crew chief having to watch from like he wasn't allowed in the garage area or something, so he had to watch like from where the haulers
Yeah,
were?
I think he's out for a few weeks or a lot of weeks.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
So the internet seemed to have worked for them.
Yeah. low budget, not on the internet though. So
Right.
I did have two other things I remembered. Number one, were you guys surprised in the Allgaier incident or the Allgaier crash that he wasn't able to?
That was another weird one. This is what I love about Speed Weeks is the weird stuff that you go, what the hell? That was weird. Yeah, I mean,
everybody checked up, but he didn't, and then he was like, "Whoa, there's a car stopped," and then it was kind of like it just reminded me of iRacing.
It totally was like it didn't help that the low budgets that they came up on were like a lot slower, but they just did not see
the car park.
It looked like they didn't. They meaning the drivers behind him and himself. And the spotters didn't look past the hood pins of that car. But I honestly believe that they just, again, right place at the wrong time.
And also, I believe Haley was around in that area too. So Allgaier might have had to deal with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it did, like you said, comparing it to an iRacing wreck, it just looked low budget.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Jeremy Clements is like, what part of this car isn't damaged?
Right, yeah. Now he's got to repair it a lot.
4X. And the last thing, I just want to give a shout out to Alex LeBay. I know him because he races the Pinty series, which is a fantastic series, which I think, don't quote me on this, but might be coming back to MAV. Maybe.
Knock on wood. I'm knocking.
Very, very entertaining series. Those cars run on short tracks, road courses, street courses. Always great racing, and LeBay is a veteran of that series, won a lot of races, and did very well, led some laps, and was running top 10 until the last crash, or the second to last crash. So didn't get the finish they wanted, but it was a nice run for Alex LeBay. So hopefully...
Well, he did finish 10th.
Oh, he did? Oh, well, he must have been... Well, he could have been better.
Last lap, but he made it.
So it could have been better though, but still a good top 10 run. So if he didn't get caught up in that crash, it would have been even better. But let's move along. So the big one, the 500. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at the very first incident involving your pole sitter. It could be a discussion to talk about. You could talk about how we had a delay. We could talk about how we had a grand marshal that is the president of the United States. You could talk about so many things.
Yeah.
From start to finish, this Daytona is going in the history books as one of the most remembered, memorable, whatever you want to say, Daytonas that we've seen in our lifetime.
Yeah. So obviously one of the topics we're going to hit up eventually talking about this race is going to be the Ryan Newman wreck that happened at the end of it. And obviously an unfortunate circumstance there. The thing with this race is that outside of that wreck and Ryan's condition is that this race was nuts. It was, and it was a Daytona 500. There were times where we had, the choo-choo train of 39 cars up on the High Line, which is part of it. But I mean, this race, they go for it, and this is one of those races, like you said, Tommy, that I don't see anybody forgetting for just maybe ever. This was a wild one.
Well,
sure.
I think that you look back at the clash, you look back at the duels, and we talked about this earlier on in this episode, but now we're talking about the Daytona 500. You can sense the intensity that everybody was on. These cars are handling great. The downforce aero, the blocking, the side drafts, everything, and that's all the formula to get yourself into position to be in the running at the end of the race. Now, obviously, if you get caught up in a wreck, that'll change things, and you have to make those dicey maneuvers, because if you don't, you're going to get passed or you're going to fall back. And we saw that with the bump drafting, the Byron incident, the so many other incidents.
The big one on the back straight away.
Right. Yeah. So you need to set yourself up. It's a lot of mirror driving. It's a lot of chess match. We say that every year. Chess match. It's real life high speed chess match. But if you described it any different, you'd be a fool. This was the Daytona 500 that was quite literally start to finish. The speed weeks was a high speed chess match. I mean, like I said, bump drafts, the wrecks, to everything involved. The most memorable Daytona in recent years.
So, obviously the first incident was the one with Stenhouse, which is really not a surprise, but he only took out one car this time, so we could just kind of bypass that. I mean, sorry, William Byron.
Charlie likes Stenhouse a lot.
Yeah.
We'll just throw out that disclaimer too.
I might have to edit that out. But anyways, so let's go to the first big crash, the one that probably took out the most cars. So guys, I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how mad is Brad Keselowski at Joey Logano right now?
I feel like disappointed might be the word. You know when your dad said, "I'm not mad, I'm disappointed." Somebody around you, coworkers, whatever. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. That hurts worse. I mean, that stings the most, doesn't it?
Look, Mom, I'm sorry. All right, just you could have done better.
Though he didn't have an ambulance to hit, so maybe his hands were still hurting.
Yeah,
it's true.
So that was the first big one, and the second one, Ross Chastain going for it. And he did get squeezed. I'll give him that, but it was
that hole was there until it wasn't.
Yeah.
He was also going, I think, 20 mile an hour faster than anybody at that time.
It's nearing the end of the race. I do feel like even at that point, I forget when was that wreck?
I feel
was that on a green white checkered?
That was
I think it was like 4 to go. I think that led to the first
green white checkered.
Wait, was there a second green? There was. Oh yeah, because the Boyer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and like I said, I just wanted to look that up to make sure. But I mean, we're at the end of the race. Chastain saw a hole. He went for it on the apron into turn number 1, which usually works really well. And
works great in iRacing.
I still kind of like, that's one of those rules, because I'll stick up for NASCAR a lot, but the yellow line rule is still one where I'm like, how necessary is this? Like, isn't that kind of a self-policing part of the track? Like, hey, don't go down there.
Like, was there one catalyst incident that like led to that? Because I recall times in the past, people before the rule, people went down there and they kind of knew, like, I gotta bail out, or like I gotta lift. And I don't remember like one incident that was like they went in the apron and it just wrecked everyone. And it's like, we gotta put a yellow line.
This is, again, a lot of what this podcast is going to be is off of our memory, and some of the stuff happened when we were maybe like 10. So cut us some slack. But one that I have seen referenced a lot, I think, was going into turn 1 at Daytona, where somebody dove down there and barely made it up in time. And I don't actually.
Well, Jeff Gordon, when he won his first one, Rusty Wallace was trying to use the lapped car of Ricky Rudd as a pick.
Right.
And Gordon even said, like, I was going to lift, but then Rusty moved up to give me a lane. So, but that didn't cause a big one, though. And
guys, wasn't there one at Talladega where, like, Skinner ended up in the grass?
That was a block. Okay, maybe that could have been it, because that's when him and Tony Stewart decided we were not going to lift.
I think you guys are all wrong.
Kevin LePage?
Cale and Donnie, 79.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look what it did. It caused them to fight.
Can we appreciate that CHALEE said Kevin LePage, though?
I thought you meant the when he decided to pit out.
Yeah. That was when you go out of the lines too fast.
That's like when Tommy's coloring in a book.
Right. Yeah. I just
Flying out.
figure it out as you go.
So yeah.
So this continues. This probably would have, until the end of the race when the story changed. But this probably would have continued the conversation of where does NASCAR draw the line on the line. So again, that's to be debated on a different day. We had that weird restart that we've seen already before with Boyer in the Clash, or with
Byron.
Well, I'm saying with Boyer that happened similar to the crash or
The Clash.
Clash. Which one was it?
It's both.
It's both, right?
Night of Destruction.
more of a crash than a clash. Yeah.
So something's going on with those. Like Jimmy Johnson, he saved it, but he spun the tires bad on a restart, so something's up, man. They say they've taken away horsepower, but they haven't done it on that triable. So.
It was, and that one, what was weird about with Boyer is that he was on the inside line, where in the Clash we saw it happen with the cars on the outside line. So no, I mean, and then talking about that last restart, I mean, what a build up to the finish.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously coming out of turn 4. So one thing that led to the wreck that happened coming to the line is Blaney did something that I was actually really impressed with. As Newman made his way by, and so they go around Hamlin. Blaney backed up to Hamlin to get him to push him, which I didn't think there'd be enough time to even try and make a move, because usually I've always felt like with Daytona, you're lucky to do anything after turn 3 unless you already have a run coming.
Yes.
And for him to get that run going, to get back up to Newman and attempt to get by, I thought that was an incredible move that kind of blew me away. And then, of course, coming into the tri-oval, I just watching it, I was so surprised to even see the 6 car turn sideways, because at that point I'm like, oh, he's gonna shove him. And it's the same thing that Blaney says in the interview, is at that point I was just gonna push him so we didn't lose to whoever was coming behind us. It just looked like the oddest of circumstances that led to Ryan Newman eventually hitting the wall, ending up upside down, and then getting hit in what I think is likely the absolute worst case scenario for one of these cars, for any race car to get hit, is upside down, driver's side window facing a car that comes at you at speed. It just, a terrifying wreck. Hamlin ends up getting the win, but yeah, I mean, what did you guys think of that whole scenario coming to the finish line?
Well, I think that it was interesting to see, like you said, the lead up, the build up, and then I kind of thought that Newman might have been on his own island, because he had a pretty good sized lead, and especially when you saw Hamlin, who had just done it all speed weeks perfect, where he kind of brought the tandem back in a big way, and he would lock bumpers and just start flying through the field. We saw it with the Eric Jones when he won. And then he did it again during the duels, and he mastered it again at the end of Daytona. But Hamlin just has it figured out in some way, or they've got 20 horsepower more in the motor. Who knows? But I was surprised too but I was surprised, but I wasn't, because you're not gonna, as a Newman, no matter how big of a gap you have or not, you're not gonna do what he wouldn't have done and just hold your line as the 21 and the 11 possibly drive by. You're going to use up the track. There's 1,000 feet left in the race. You're not going to, even if you get pushed across the line sideways and still win, it's a win. You won Daytona again. And if you're Blaney or if you're Hamlin, you're going to just push until you get a run enough and make a move. And whatever that move is, it's likely the last one until the checkered flag flies. Yeah,
it's funny because earlier today, so Jeffrey, you got to understand, even though we work at a racing company, there's still a lot of people that don't really watch a lot of racing, or they do, but not really NASCAR sometimes. So we get a lot of questions.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you don't work with us, so but so one of our coworkers asked us today, like, what did we think about it? Obviously, like, how long of a conversation do you want? But in the end, the way the rules are, these cars get big runs, and if you're the leader, you're gonna block, and if you're in second, you're not gonna lift. And Blaney tried. He went high, he got blocked high. He went low, he got blocked low. It's like,
and you're out of
where do you go?
You're out of options.
So
yeah.
I mean, in the end, they're all trying to win, and I still can't believe, that A, Hamlin missed Newman's car, and
right.
B, he was able to side draft Blaney and pass him they were already in the tri-oval.
Yeah.
And he did he had to avoid a car, Fast and the Furious style, and then side draft and still won the race.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, he's got some FedEx horsepower, some delivery speed on that one.
But Tommy, you said earlier, like, you kind of felt like Hamlin, up to the point before Newman threw that block, you thought that Hamlin had already kind of conceded he was going to get third.
Yeah, it looked like he kind of bowed out because he was locked on the 21, and they were coming up on the 6, and then I think once he saw the 6 make the move, Hamlin said, well, again, in a span of a blink of an eye, all this happened, but he just went away from the 21's bumper, took the high line, and still ended up winning, and it was just literally an instant that I wonder if we asked Denny in, maybe 10 weeks, did he actually think he won that race, or did he cross the line and just was like, well, good points day, and then they're like, congrats, man, you won.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot going on at once.
Right, exactly. I mean, who really knows? But yeah, I mean, that was a total freak incident that the worst possible thing could have happened, and it did. And never is that a good sign when you see anybody in any type of vehicle get hit
in that spot,
in the roof, no matter what side. It's all dangerous. And just, still pulling for Ryan and still thinking of even all the others that are involved, because it shakes up everybody. I mean, the three of us, we were shaking pretty hard, much like everybody else. But we weren't involved. We were just watching from thousands of miles away on a TV. Yeah. So, just an incredible outcome so far that we've seen with Ryan Newman's prognosis, and just continuing to hope for the best. And does anything change at Daytona? I want to say that if it does, I'm not surprised, but I don't care to knee jerk anything.
Yeah.
Let's we've got a long way till Talladega, and I'm sure there might be other people who are just like, my God, how could you say that? And I don't know. Like, I think that we've got something really exciting to watch. And do we want to see what happen? Of course not. But do we see it often? No.
Yeah.
The thing is also, I'm just going to throw this in, is that this kind of wreck can happen at any track that these drivers are hitting the speeds they're doing. That's any mile and a half, any 2-mile track that these cars are going to. This kind of freak accident, like you said, Tommy, because really what made it as bad as it was the oncoming traffic afterwards.
The end result made it worse. Yeah.
Right. And CHALEE, you were going to say something?
Oh yeah. So back to sort of, the general public outcry that really doesn't follow racing or know much about racing, and they think, oh, they're going too fast, we need to slow them down. But like, you're not really solving any problems, because you're still going to be in a pack. Mm-hmm. The cars are still going to get airborne. And like, if he didn't get hit in the roof / driver side, he would have been fine, but he happened to get hit. Like you said, there's only one spot that is the absolute worst spot, and that was it. And slowing them down is not going to do anything. It's not going to
No.
help, you know.
Well, and plus, like it's one of those wrecks where, it's again, there's so much circumstance around it that it's hard to pinpoint. It's not like the car just lifted off the ground, like, oh, the roof flaps didn't do their job.
Correct.
Type of thing.
He hit the wall and then it rotated.
Right. There was a whole, just everything around that wreck that again could have gone wrong, and that's why I'm saying, like, this is technically a wreck that could have happened at a lot of tracks. Obviously, with this kind of style of racing, you could say, oh, it's more likely to happen. These drivers are doing some crazy stuff, but it's the Daytona 500 for it. But what happened to Newman was something that, and I'm kind of sitting here watching the replay of it, is that, the car didn't even start to go upside down until after he hit the wall.
Yeah.
Right. And that was, I think, dissipation of energy.
Yeah, it was, it's kind of, I don't know if it's something that would have happened necessarily if concrete was there, but the impact obviously would have been worse. So the safer barrier continuing to do its job, and that's still one of the great things that they've added that has allowed so many drivers to get away with so many bad wrecks. But there is a ricochet effect, and sometimes you have that combination of the car hitting it gets light in the back end, and as we saw, that's what turned this car over. It's not, oh, they're going too fast. This kind of wreck, we've seen it short tracks, not maybe to this extent, but a car hitting the wall at a weird angle can have this effect. And even then, I fall back on what initially caused this wreck when Blaney was on the 6. It wasn't like, I didn't feel like Blaney did anything over aggressive even to kick off what happened. Like, I feel like at that point he was like, well, if you're going to be here, then I'm going to push you to the line. And that was after 2 blocks, and it just looks like, Ryan's car, if you look at it a few times, it just looks like maybe the car wasn't fully under him by the time they hit the trioval, and it was light enough in the back end that's what turned it. It just looks so bizarre, because when I was watching it live, I was so surprised when the 6 car turned to the right, because I thought at that point things were stable. Ryan Newman's going to win this race. And the other thing that, like, around this incident, because obviously it was a very scary thing to watch and to sit through, and then to have to wait to find out, like, what is his condition, I got to give a lot of credit to Mike Joy, and on the commentating side of all this, like, this, as an announcer, and Tommy and I, we've worked at tracks as main announcers at tracks. We do, Low Budget TV live broadcasts, and unfortunately, we have been at tracks that have had the worst of all things happen, and those are the moments as an announcer that I feel, above all else, where you are truly, I guess, as they say, earning your paycheck. Because that is the moment where you have to be so careful with everything that you're saying.
Literally, you have to piece through you have to, like, there's things about saying, like, know what you're going to say about before you say it. And if there's not meticulous word phrasing and deciphering and filtering, I don't know what is. But
and there's so much emotion. Like, Tommy, you and I, obviously, we come back to a wreck that we saw 2 years ago,
right,
where, like I said, unfortunately, a driver did lose his life in the wreck. And the scary thing to me about, this incident is that it very much was a car went upside down, the car rotated, and there was an impact right at the same spot. Now, these were dirt modifieds, not as built up as the Cup cars, and hopefully it's something that, again, with every incident, you hope you can learn and hopefully not lose anybody in the process. But when we were in those situations, you're also dealing with so much emotion, and not knowing.
And to continue that, I mean, you see it happen, and you're like, you know off the top it's bad. So then you're seeing the rescue efforts, and like you said, for the broadcasters, Mike Joy, Jeff Gordon, when they did their final update that they could have given, you could see the situation did not look good through their eyes. And Jeff and I seeing that through our eyes, to which we have been in that situation before. And you're just kind of walking away from your job, not sure what the news is going to be within the next few minutes, next few hours, or next few days. And it is very, very uncomfortable. It is very difficult, but it's also, something you can't just walk away from. It's something that you've got to carry all the way until you got a chance to really just kind of step away and collect yourself.
Because like in this scenario, what essentially Mike Joy is now basically has in his hand is carrying not just the emotions he's going through, and Jeff in the booth with him and everybody at the track. He's literally there carrying the emotions of everybody that's watching this. Mm-hmm. Like there's the understanding that obviously this is a very serious wreck, and like you said, you basically buckle down and say, okay, we need to, as best as we can with the right information that we have, be able to deliver information, because that everyone's asking, what's the update, what's this, what's that, but it is your job to only deliver the information that you can share.
Right.
And it is hard. And as we discussed even before the podcast, Mike is someone who's been in this, for so long, and has probably experienced so many highs and lows of this sport as a broadcaster. But I just wanted to throw that out as something, because credit is deserved there.
Yes.
In handling that kind of situation. It might not even really occur to people how hard those situations are unless you've been in them. And unfortunately, again, Tommy and I have been in those direct situations. And in a lot of cases, they've actually turned out to be, the driver's okay. We didn't know at the time, but then you have that sigh of relief. And then there's the other side where you have the tragedy. And racing is a dangerous sport. And, for reference of this podcast, we are recording this on February 18th, and the latest update from Ryan Newman is that he has been conscious and awake and speaking with his family and doctors, as reported by Roush Fenway Racing. So, I mean, really, it's we still don't know the extent of and we're not going to speculate on anything outside of what we've been told, but just knowing that there is that communication, that Ryan is speaking with the family and doctors, is just such, I think, a collective sigh of relief when NASCAR reported that it was, although serious but non-life-threatening injuries that Ryan Newman had received from that wreck. So, again, our continued prayers and thoughts, like Tommy said, to not just Ryan and his family and friends, but to everybody involved in this, the whole NASCAR community, drivers like Blaney and LaJoy, who are going through a different side of this kind of incident and having to deal with. Just, again, continued prayers going to Ryan's recovery, and we certainly hope for the best for everybody.
Absolutely. That was a really eerie feeling. Obviously it was a little bit different for you because you were watching it not live. You were watching on tape delay. So when me and Tommy were watching it, when the initial crash happened, we knew it was big, but very quickly we realized it might have been bigger than we thought. And then once we saw the car and then the replay, It was a really eerie feeling. It was a feeling that I honestly hadn't had since Dale died in 2001.
Well, it was a thing too, like to further on about what you mentioned about Jeffrey watching a tape. Obviously, he had to work. You and I get the luxury at times of working at a TV network, and we've got TVs around that just so happen to be on Fox at 4:00 in the afternoon for that day.
We won't tell anybody.
No, we won't.
It's research.
We were still working though, to be fair.
We had to watch Lucas Oil car.
But when this incident happened, knowing that Jeffrey wasn't even sitting down to watch it yet, I texted Jeffrey because if there's one thing Jeffrey is stubborn about, it's spoilers. That was one of those that I told him on text. I sent him 2 simple text messages. I said, avoid all social media. I wouldn't even look at your phone. Like, knowing full well that you don't have to be, if you just know that somebody you know likes racing and you're seeing all this news about speculation, unfortunately, and everything else, you're going to get contacted. And I think he did get a message or two, which, I can only imagine, and this is something that I'm going to tee up for Jeffrey, but, I can only imagine his sense when, I don't know when he finished the race, but I know it was later on in the evening after the news had broken from Steve O'Donnell. But, I think all of us, like when the wreck happened, I didn't even see the finish. Like in my brain, that was just warped away, ghosted away. And I mentioned to you, I said, good thing Denny, that was his third one. Because this is one that's never going to sink in, I don't think.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
No,
I don't think. Now, Denny, obviously, I'm not Denny Hamlin. And it probably will sink in later on, of course, after, the period gets put on the story, hopefully in a great way. But, yeah, I'm glad he's won 2 before. Because...
Well, yeah, no, and going off that, like, because I agree because I've considered, like, man, if Ryan Blaney had actually won this race, we've seen Ryan through, he is somebody who, we saw it in his interview, he wouldn't have even been thinking about, like, there would have been such a weird emotional deal where, like, wow, we won the Daytona 500, but I don't even think he would have probably referenced it. I think he would have been like, I just wrecked Ryan Newman. And where Denny was, you could almost say, wasn't involved with that wreck. There was kind of like Denny didn't seem fully aware at first as to what quite had happened, and then found out as he made his way to victory lane. But I do agree that, like, it's kind of one of those weird things you think about way after the fact. Stuff that we can talk about now that we know how Ryan's doing. It is just it's a weird scenario for a finish of a Daytona 500.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wanted to ask both of you guys, and it's something that not just me and Tommy thought of when it happened, but everybody in the office, because I think there were like 5 of us in the office or in our office room when the end of the race went down. And I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but after the race, when the safety crew was getting to Newman's car, did you kind of think they were very nonchalant?
Okay. So actually, I can branch what Tommy was just saying with this. So for me, as Tommy mentioned, I didn't watch this race live because I was at work and actually working.
Burn.
Oh no. But I got the text from Tommy, which it was about 5:00 our time here in Pacific time zone. And so what I did when I got that, Tommy was vague enough to where I didn't know if it was good or bad or anything. So what I did was I literally just turned off my phone. I went, well, I'm not even going to chance it. I turned off my phone. There's drivers we're rooting for in this race. And I was like, maybe one of them won. Maybe one of them just did well. And someone's going to be like, oh, hey, maybe one of them wrecked bad. I don't know. So I just turned everything off. I'm like, I'll see it for myself when I get to it. I didn't get to the end of that race until about, I think, around 8:30 at night. watching through everything. I don't fast forward. I'll watch a race all the way through, minus commercials. I even watch when commercials are playing, but they're doing their side by side stuff. And so yeah, for me, like you said, the difference of how we all experienced this situation is that for me, I didn't have to wait as long as you guys did to find out Ryan's condition. But where I was in a genuine state of is that when I saw the wreck happen, and I saw it as it was happening, like as the wreck, I didn't have to wait for the replay before I went, that was bad. That was really bad. And I'll sometimes sit here and yell at my TV about certain things. And what I was yelling at my TV about as the car was sitting there is I'm like, is anyone going to get to this car? Like, come on. Like my wife heard me in the other room yelling at the TV. Cause I was just like, where's the fire truck? And I don't know. To me, I did feel like, and like you said, this isn't necessarily like calling anyone out. It's also a product of a wreck like this.
I think it's emotion. Yeah, I think it's emotional driven because you witness that and I mean, you kind of hope that Ryan Newman just, eventually that car slides in front of the infield care center to where they can just like, oh, perfect, drive through rescue. But I'm sure if somebody were to time it, it was probably a span of a very acceptable time. But eternity went by when all you saw was, of course, a zoomed-in car with, fluid leaking out. Who knows what that was? You just hope that it wasn't fuel, and if it was, my God, how lucky was he on that one, too? But I feel like that was emotionally driven, and who's to say? I mean, with that shot that they were giving us, there might have been another 10 cars still finishing the race at the time. You can't just roll out and hope that no one's gonna not run over debris or something. So
well, and I think also from the shot, like I'm watching it right here right now. So cars are crossing the line, Newman's car sliding. Before this car even gets to a stop, you can see the fire and safety vehicles are on their way.
Right.
Because I think I'm watching it here. The car's just now stopping. And yeah, I mean, like they're on their way. Like you said, there's emotion behind it as a viewer, where what you're seeing is time changes in certain situations. Race car drivers will reference when things go in slow motion for them. And yeah, like you see this, and like Tommy said, is you almost just want this car to just, it's already there at in the infield care center. Like, okay, cool, we're here, check up on the driver. But yeah, no, I mean, going back to it, like, when I saw this wreck, and again, how much this wreck reminded me of one that we saw 2 years ago. I was dreading checking in because there was a news came on after the race here on the Pacific time zone on Fox. And so what I did was I fast forwarded through that thinking, okay, they might have an update of something. And their only thing that they added to everything we saw on the broadcast is that they put up black tarps to remove them.
Right.
So at this point, I'm like, well, that's not helping how I'm feeling about this, because I don't recall the last time they held up tarps to remove a driver. Like that's not in my memory bank. If it has been something that they've done in NASCAR. And so now I'm like, oh man, I was dreading looking online, and I did. And when I saw the report that he was in serious but non-life threatening condition, I was like, thank God.
Right.
Like, just again, this was an unbelievable wreck. And you always hope in wrecks like these that, on a small scale, way below everything else, because obviously, the family and we're talking Ryan's life, all that aside, is that you always want this to be something that Ryan himself can look back and be like, dang,
Yeah,
like,
right.
and because again, this was just insane. This Daytona 500 ended on an insane note. And again, just as far as everything goes for, everybody on Monday night was a Ryan Newman fan.
Mm-hmm.
We're all Ryan Newman fans right now, rooting for him, and certainly just hope that his he's set up and able to have a full recovery, and yeah, again, Ryan Newman fans.
So I've said everything I needed to say about the topic, but I will say one last thing. My closing statement is, I hope that there's already in the works some scientific report / movie, video, YouTube, like, I don't know, but like with legit information. I really hope that we can look into the science of all this at some point. And, we're already in shock and awe of how amazing these race cars are built and how safe they are and everything. But if there is not one testament, I mean, this is it. This is check mark to the T. And, I mean, I hope that this car, the way it sits now, and there's a likely chance that nobody will ever see it. But if there is, I hope they can put it in the Hall of Fame and let, just playing on 24-hour loop, a 30-minute special about the science of how this all worked out. Because to me, it's incredible. And I think that it is to so many other people. That's my closing statement.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like, what was it, Weatherly that was killed at Riverside?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, I think, like, man, like, we've come a long way from that type of impact to, like, Ryan Newman could survive a car crashing into his windshield, So, it was a huge relief when we got the news that it was non-life threatening. Obviously, we still have no idea at this point what that means, but he's alive, and at this point, we'll take it. So, definitely a crazy, crazy way to cap off 2020 Speed Weeks. Let's look ahead to the Western Swing. You got Vegas, Fontana, Phoenix. Any thoughts, guys?
I think Vegas. My thoughts on Vegas is I'm gonna be curious to see the mood. I'm gonna be curious to see how we really start the season. I'm gonna see who and where the players and the racers stack up and the teams and everything, because again, Daytona fantasy race, Talladega fantasy race, whatever. Now we're gonna start the season, and this is a great way to start it, I feel like, because you get all the different tracks that you're gonna really get to see. And I feel like Vegas is the only track that I've ever been to where I have seen a UPS truck driving through the desert to deliver mail. That's what I got on that track.
100%. Yeah, no, I like Tommy said, like, one thing that I'll always treasure and love about Daytona being the opening race of the year is that it is a crapshoot. It is non-indicative of anything of how the season's going to go. It is crazy. It opens up the door for any and every team that's in that race. And where things are going to really kick into gear outside of just the overall championship and where do teams stack up is also going to be the Rookie of the Year. Where is Reddick compared to Christopher Bell? How is Cole Custer going to do? Does John Hunter Nemechek stand a chance in this one, even though he might be in what could be considered lesser equipment? But who knows? It's all this stuff. And really, I think at this point, everyone considers the favorite of the Rookie of the Year, obviously, to be Quinn Houff. So,
Right.
0-0 is certainly going to be showing them how it's done.
Right.
But no, and I was bummed out a little bit, because Tommy and I, we watched, we watched Cole Custer turn his first stock car laps at Irwindale Speedway, and we used to interview Cole when he was much more, or maybe much less not awkward. He just like everybody else. When you learn with your interviews,
We'll just say he was very quiet.
He was very quiet. Like, we're talking very quiet, but still, we got to see those early years and watch him progress. And Daytona 500, I thought he and his team were doing everything right, and then the rear end went out on the car, and what can you do? So, I just think this is, again, as mentioned way earlier, that the Rookie of the Year in all divisions is going to be exciting to watch. But I think we're going to see something special in the Cup Series this year.
Jeffrey, I'm going to ask you this because you witnessed it, but do you think that Cole, speaking of the rookie class, going into Fontana, like, he's going to have a lot to learn? And I feel like Daytona, it's, again, the crapshoot. Vegas, he's going to really figure it out and learn a lot. But do you feel like it's great for him to get Fontana so soon, being that he was the most recent winner the last time he was there?
I feel like it's not going to hurt. Not to mention that he's got the same crew chief that he had when he was at Fontana in the Xfinity Series. He's got Shiplet on the box. They obviously, Xfinity cars are different from Cup cars, and these packages are different. And so I think I don't know if Cole's going to be past his Cup Series learning curve this early.
Oh, no, but I'm just saying he's got to feel like
it's a good track to go to.
He's bringing the notebook to Vegas, but he's really going to leave it in the backpack when he goes to Fontana, so he can really just kind of, like, he knows the track. He's been successful, and he's got to be confident. So
yeah, I mean, there's got to be that, and that's the benefit of. And again, it goes to all three of our big three from last year in the Xfinity Series. Is each of them have at least 6 wins from last year, and so they each are going to be going into tracks where they're like, oh yeah, I know you. Cole winning at Fontana last year over Kyle Busch. So yeah, there's going to be confidence, and that's the thing. That's why Vegas is going to be so interesting to me, is we don't know where any of these 3 or 4 rookies that will really be contending for this. Brendan Poole's not out of it yet. Quinn Houff is still there, but I think those will be more miracle runs if they are involved in this Rookie of the Year battle. But yeah, this is going to be kind of the telling year as far as where are things. Same with Christopher Bell's team with this alliance. I feel like ramped up alliance with Joe Gibbs. Is it a 5th Joe Gibbs car basically, or is there still going to be a little bit behind on things? We don't know. There's so many things to answer just in that group, and we're talking about a 10th of the field for Vegas. All I got to say is that when we've gone to Vegas, we have experienced, 2 major things. There's almost 2 things, 3 things that you can count on in Vegas. There's going to be gambling, there's going to be wind, and there's going to be drunk people on Fremont Street.
And if I'm there, I will be snoring.
Yes. Tommy and wind equals the loudest noise I've ever heard a human being make in my life. It scares me. I feel like Tommy couldn't recreate the noise if he tried.
And I've tried.
Yeah, like he can't yell as loud as he snores. I don't know how he does it.
So I know Charlie's probably itching at the bit to butt in, but I'm going to say one of the most funniest memories that there's ever been between Jeffrey and I in our entire lives up till this point involved a trip to Vegas for the truck race, and we both found ourselves talking in our sleep in the same hotel room. Jeffrey got up on his hands and knees in the middle of the night and cussed out his pillow, and I blessed him after he sneezed, but to the tone of his sneeze. So very weird occurrences, Area 51 like in Las Vegas. But
we didn't know that the other person had, like, I didn't know that I had slept talk and he didn't know I had slept talk until the following night's dinner, where one of us brought up, oh, did you know you did this last night? And then, oh, well, did you know you did this last night?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I was getting ready to sneeze, and all of a sudden, like, this is what it sounded like in the room. Bless you. And I was like, wow. And then Tommy, without missing a beat, just goes, okay, let's go to bed.
Yep.
I'm like, well, that was weird. And what did I say, Tommy? I said you said I was.
I woke up to you talking, making noise. So I looked over, and he was on his hands and knees in bed, facing his pillow.
And what was on my head?
He had his his NASCAR scanner headset. Not sure why. Maybe to block out my snoring. Likely.
Definitely to block out your snoring.
And I wake up and I look over on all fours, and he's facing his pillow saying, "This is bullshit. This is shit."
It was, apparently.
And yeah, like you said, about 10 hour later is when we figured out we were both talking in our sleep. Fontana's going to be fun. We're going to all three try to be there. I know that's the goal. So we're going to be fresh from that race. And that's going to be fun. We like to cheat a little bit when we go to Fontana. We buy the AAA discounted seats, which are normally at the very bottom row next to nothing. And during the race, we just walk around up at the top of the grandstands, find a seat, and if you don't try that, you're a fool. Because
are we really sharing our secrets on this podcast?
Yeah, we're informative. We're informative.
Oh, great. Well, I was gonna say, because what we do is we didn't actually do it last year. Tommy wasn't there because you were doing something that weekend.
I think I was getting married.
Was that it?
Pick that weekend to do that. Yeah. But Jeffrey, we did find some very interesting fans.
Yes, and wasn't there a driver that they didn't like or really liked or something?
Really liked, and I thought that they were going to jump off the rails. So
yeah,
wow,
yeah, these guys were doing backflips, but they were also intoxicated and have never done backflips before. So that's actually, I was going to say why CHALEE and I did not leave our seats.
It was way too entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had two forms of entertainment. And then, Jeffrey, what do we got on Phoenix? That was a race where, so my story is on Phoenix to end the West Coast swing. My dad used to work for a friend of his. They sold Goodyear tires for the Southwest Tour and at the time, Winston West teams. And they would run in conjunction with Phoenix. So my mom and I, would get practically infield VIP passes. So we would stake our spot over in the infield of turns number 1 and 2, which are now 3 and 4. And I've seen probably 3 or 4 cup races from that location. I was there. I was a huge fan of the Goodyear Bridge in turn 4 at the time. And I've once stopped an entire row of people because we were walking over the bridge as they were starting happy hour. And at the time, me, all of 4 years old, I didn't know what a schedule was. I just knew that I heard race cars as I was halfway through the bridge. And they were like plywood flooring with a gap, maybe a 1 inch or so gap. And so I just heard the cars coming, and I saw that I could see a gap, and I laid down on my stomach, looked through the gap, and saw the cars zooming underneath me. And everybody in that bridge or tunnel had to stop because of me. So
your domino effect.
Yeah. And Jeffrey, what do you got?
Well, Phoenix is one, and I imagine we're probably going to have our next podcast around Phoenix because I feel like we got a lot of stories.
You sure
including
do.
That Tommy and I actually have worked at Phoenix in the media room,
yes.
and there's a lot of juice that we can get into, and I almost want to save that for
we're saving it.
I feel like
that's a whole podcast.
I feel like you you practically ended this one with a tease.
Yeah.
Cliffhang 'em, man, cliffhang 'em. So I mean, 2020 is upon us, and so is this podcast because we're just a bunch of racing fools.
Perfectly ended. So
I got nothing.
Yeah. Speechless. That's what you are.
Well, thanks guys for taking the time to bench race a little bit. It was definitely an eventful week, and here's to a exciting 2020.
Cheers.
Amen.
The Racing Foolz podcast is produced by TQ Media House in association with Low Budget TV. Special thanks goes out to Tommy and Jeffrey from Low Budget TV, Kelly McGuire for the free mic and mixer, and Ramon Ariola for helping create various show elements. Music is provided by RFM, royalty-free music in the YouTube audio library. If you like what you hear, give Low Budget TV a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what you think. We welcome all questions, comments, and ideas, and who knows, maybe your idea will be the next topic on the Racing Foolz podcast.